Okay, so welcome everyone to the first session of this year 2021 of Barcelona Coding Monkeys. We are going to be having like an open source series. I'm going to be talking more about the program I have a bit in mind. But first of all, let's get to what we are here for, which is on how to upload packages to Pypi. So Pypi is the Python package index, and it actually has an amazing tutorial. I do feel it's really amazing, but as it happened with many computer science things, I feel that when you like read one of these tiny paragraphs, they usually have as much content that you could probably write like half a book chapter or a whole Medium post, and that's actually what a lot of folks do, right? So we are going to be following the official tutorial, but I'm going to be walking you through it. Then I feel also that a lot of things at university are taught from like a bottom up approach, like you build from like the fundamentals. And I think that helps, and kind of like some people like it. I usually don't. I like to, and I think most people are like me in this sense that we like to, if somebody had to tell us how to play soccer or to play basketball or cricket or, the ukulele from, the angle in which we need to have our hands, and we probably would have quit from the very beginning. So we are going to follow up a top down approach. I'm going to show you first the project. I'm going to show you how to use it. And then I'm going to show you kind of like how you get there step by step while we follow the tutorial. So, so yeah, that's basically it. So let's go first to the project, right? So we are going to be uploading, or I'm going to show you how I uploaded the following package to Pypi, which is called animals say. Let me actually this one. Yeah, sorry. So that's Pypi, you know it, and you could just like pip install it in your system by doing pip install animals say, right? Um, so the goal is this session is how do we get here, and it's not going to take us 2 hours, but I just wanted to make sure we had enough time to just like go step by step. So I want to explain you kind of like what you see here now in this screen, because we are going to see it then in code. So I feel it's way easier if kind of like you first get like the UI understanding and then you see it in the code. So basically you realize that you have here the description of the project in one line, and then also a much more like longer description that in most packages usually contains things like how to install it, especially how to use it. And then it also contains things like, I mean, how you can get extra functions, how you can contribute to the package, how you should quote the authors, these kind of things, right? Then what is this package that we are going to be walking about? As you can easily tell, it's just like a Python version of the famous Cowsay program by Tony Monroe, and I just base it on another Python package. So I think that's very important here. I'm not the goal of this session is not how to, it's not that I want to show you off like my most awesome Python packages. I want a package which is like simple and yet complex enough to show you a few interesting things, right? So this has like modules and submodules, which is, for instance, something I think it's interesting, right? So how does the package work? Basically, you install it, and then you would just like from the utils you import the say function, and then you can say cow, and then whatever you want to say, right? And that's the classic one. But then I also included what I thought were really cute animals, because the original one had like what I thought were very ugly animals. So I thought I needed to like cutify. So that was my my big contribution, right? So what else do we have in this screen? Basically, we have the release history. And note that I have only released one version. What does it mean? That if now I were to make changes to the code, for instance, to add other cute animals, I would probably do another release, either like a major release, which would be like the first number, or like a minor release. And then I would upload it to Pypi again, and then people would be able to install like the sixth version or whatever, right? Then there is something called download files, and we are going to be talking more of that later. But basically, it's what Python installs. And like, realize the following, that you have two times. You have like a toolbar file, which is like the source distribution, and we have something, and you have something called wheel. So if let me say the following. I think this class for me is like level 201. So like, everybody should kind of assess your label and take what makes sense. And this I'm going to say now is a bit more advanced. So basically, when you do pip install, what your computer is doing is coming here and looking to these files, right? And by default, it will try to install the wheel. And we are going to be talking on what's that. But basically, the Python package has already been built. And if there is no wheel available, it will kind of like by default go to the tarball file, which it then requires to do the build and the install in your system. And there is the real Python post that it's just amazing, and I'm gonna showing you that later. Then the next thing you have here is the home page of the project. So you could put here whatever link, but most likely that's going to be your GitHub URL, or like your GitLab, or like whatever hosted repo you're using, right? So and here you see the code for my project. So I think something that you could do at the end of this session that we are having today is you could come here, fork my project, add, for instance, another animal with this ASCII keyboard art, do a pull request, and then I will do a new release of the library, and then you will be able to install it, right? So I think, for instance, that, or you could take my code and see how you can improve it, right? So those are already like examples. But the point I wanted to bring is when you click on the home page, it brings you here. Then coming back, then you see how many stars it has on GitHub, how many people have forked it, and if there are any open issues or pull requests, right? And since that's a very unpopular library, obviously you have none of those. Then you see the licenses, which it's an MIT license. The license basically means under which conditions other people can use your code. And I'm going to be showing you like how do you get there. But basically I chose like the MIT license. Then sometimes the author kind of like gives you contact information, so you can write to the author like an email. Then there is the requires, which tells you for which Python version you're going to be able to use the library. And the guidance is to say to make it as generic as possible. So that's why you have like an equal or greater sign, right? You don't have Python equals 3.6. And then, yeah, just the username and something called classifiers. So I think it makes sense to look first maybe into those classifiers, because you were not going to come back into those again. So basically, these classifiers, I understand them as a tagging system from Pypi. So it says that each project maintainer just basically provides a minimal list of those classifiers, which are for categorizing your project, right? And if you go to Pypi and look for classifiers, you see all the possible classifiers that you could give to your project, right? And the ones I choose are obviously from this list. And to use them is very easy, because you just like copy it on the clipboard, and then you put it in your code. And I'm going to show you exactly where, right? So yeah, I think that's basically all that I wanted to say from this main page. So what like the next step is basically, you will imagine now that I've done like, or basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like I've done a git clone of my GitHub project, and I'm going to be showing you the same in code, right? So I'm going to open, Visual Studio Code, and I want you to look here at the left, because one of the main issues with uploading files to Pypi is not understanding exactly how you have to like structure your projects. So if you realize I have like a top level folder, which is called my package. And in my package, I'm going to put the actual code that's going to be my project, but also a bunch of other files. And the minimal ones you require, I mean, actually, you just require the setup PI. And the setup PI is the contract, if you want, between you and Pypi, so that it's so then very easy to upload it there. So you need to have this setup PI file. But then obviously most people also include two other files, which are the license, which I showed you, and the README that you will see now. And then, as you know, probably from other version control projects, you can have this git ignore folder that basically makes sure that like certain things don't get committed to GitHub, right? So I think that's yeah, that's basically what I wanted to say. And just as a mapping, this is, if we go back to the tutorial I told you we were going to be following, you see it here, right? A simple project, and they tell you, like, they call it packaging tutorial, call it my package. They have a license, the README. They have something that I called animal say, and they call example package. They have something inside, which is the init PI file. I will be talking about that. And then they have this very important setup PI file. And then they have another folder, which is for tests. And I think everybody knows how important it is to test your code. So if you have done some tests, for instance, you like unit tests with PyTests, you would place them in this folder, right? And in my case, I left it out. So that's this folder here is missing. So what we are going to be doing next is how to create this setup PI file. So let's jump back now to the code editor. And let me show you the setup PI file. I'll make it a bit bigger. So I think it's very important to basically know like which are the main elements. And what you have to do is from setup tools, import this function called setup. That's kind of like the minimum necessary. And this function setup, it's the one that takes all these arguments that then you will recognize in Pypi. So this is the name of your package. This is like what you pip install. It's not necessary what you import. This could have like another name. Then you have the version of your package. Then you have a short description, which is the one you just saw under the pip install headline. And then you have a long description. And if you realize I'm taking my long description is the variable, and I'm getting it from here, which is actually the README file, which is written, which it says .md, which means markdown. So, and it's the same, it says here, long description, content text, text markdown, right? Then you have the author, which is me, you have my email, and then you have the URL, which is the GitHub URL, the kind of license, and the classifier, the Python requires, and that's a very, you see here like a link on Stack Overflow. That's because like this line caused me some trouble, and I told you that my module, so the thing is, if you look for tutorials online, you will see people doing things like the calculator or like very simple packages which usually don't have submodules, and that's most likely not what you will do, because if you're kind of like considering doing a package, it's because you have some complex code, meaning that code most likely has submodules. So if you have submodules, and by that I mean you see my animal say, and I have two other folders, which is farm and home, and I'll show you the content, but I want like animal say and those two folders to kind of like be part of my distribution, right? So these find packages is this awesome magical function that makes sure that like all these submodules, farm and home, will also be there. Yeah. And I think one other important detail is that make sure that you don't put any like scores like this one. Like you may use underscores, but these ones are not allowed. And it's also one of these things I didn't found mentioned explicitly in the documentation, and then they can cause you trouble, right? So that's everything I wanted to say on the setup PI file, and like realize that basically all this information is the same that then you see here. So that's why I showed you first the UI. And that's actually the only really compulsory file. Then for Python to realize that okay, let's go now into the code of the package itself, which is actually super simple. So animal say has a main statement, which or actually let me show you how it works. I created a virtual environment with Conda, which is called Pypi, and it's Python of 3.7, so it satisfies the requirement of my package. And I installed two packages which are called Wheel and Twine, and you will see them later, right? But what I want to say is that it's a very low weight virtual environment. So and let me do pip freeze so that you see something important, which is that I don't have the package. Let me scroll to the very top. I don't have the package animal say installed, right? And that's good because actually it's what I want to show you. So now I'm already in my package folder. So what I could try to do is to install the package here. So I can do pip install -e and here. Just give it a sec. Okay, so what I just did, so most likely when you want to publish a package to Pypi, you're gonna like follow these three stages. First, you're gonna try to like build your package locally. Then you're gonna upload it to TestPipe, which is exactly like Pypi, so it's already on somebody else's computer, but it's the test version. And finally, you're gonna put it in Pypi, right? So what I did now is I just build it from the setup PI file, and that's what you see here, running setup PI file, and the source code is the one that's already here, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna follow the Python package instructions, and it says from animal say dot utils import say. Now I'm gonna say say cow. I'm gonna say hello meetup, and I get the output, right? And that's just what I wanted to first check locally. Other things you would check locally is, for instance, if you have tests, right? So here is where you would be running PyTest and making sure your tests pass. And then when you get to that point that you're happy with how your code is, then you consider to upload it somewhere else. So so what I'm gonna do now is pip uninstall. Okay, sorry. And there is one very cool thing. I don't know if you have ever seen this install -e. I hadn't until I kind of like decided to look into this. And I actually because I open pip install. So that's the pip install documentation, and E means editable. So that's pretty cool because you can do changes on the go. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I go to, so I showed you the main file. The interesting one is utils, and utils basically what utils does, it imports the animals. So I classified my animals into like animals that live in a farm and animals that you would have at home. So let me show you the animals that live in a farm are, for instance, a cow, whereas the animals that live at home are like a cat and a bunny. And that's all my library has. And that's why I was telling you that you can do a pull request. And the only bit of code you have to add is like an additional animal here. And then you have this utils.file, which it has two functions. One is the string processing that basically like realizes like, is your text very long or is it your text short? And depending on that, like your the place where the text is placed, it will have a shape or another. And then you have the actual save function that just takes the right animal and passes your text into that, right? And here you have a dictionary with like the user input and the mappings, right? So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna be super mean and I'm gonna pass here, I'm gonna pass to cow a bunny. And I'm going to save that. And if I do, I hope it works. If I do Python again, and I again import my library, and I do now cow say, I get the bunny. So I think it's super nice what we like what just happened. So basically, what it happened is I created a virtual environment and I installed my development library on my virtual environment. So that's very important because I'm not crashing or messing with my base installation or with like another with the possible library from pip, right? I know that it's this one I have in this folder. And then I just did like a small change in the file. I save it. And when I reload it, I had already like the change implemented. So that's why I told you this is like the mode for testing. And that's thanks to this -e or this editable flag. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put back that back to the correct version. So I think I've walked you through all the code. What we just need to do is finally, I'll show you now this Markdown file. There is nothing mysterious about it. It's just Markdown. But I want to show you something that I discovered and thought it was so amazing, which is this online Markdown editor. So you can write like your Markdown here, and you see here how it looks. And when you're done, you just download it. So that's something I love to make it nicer. And then another thing is the license. And I chose the MIT license. But in order for you to decide for the right license, I find this page super useful. So it's called Choose a License. And you just say, you know, what do you want to, it asks you like a few questions. And based on that, it recommends you like a license or another. And it gives you the license text so that you can just like then copy paste it into your project. And that's literally all you need to know. So I'm coming back to the editor, and I think we are. So I told you about all the code that's into animals say. I told you about the setup PI file. I told you about the README, the license, the gitnor. We will talk about the egg thing, though it has to do very little with Pypi as well as the PyCache. I think the only key component then for Pypi is that you remember that you need this lambda init lambda.py in each module and submodule. So you see I have it one at the top level, and then I have it in each subfolder. And if you remember that, you're basically good to go for your own package. So yeah, I think that was the main things. Those were the main things I wanted to say. So let's now go back to the tutorial and see where we actually are. So we talked about how to create the setup PI file. So whatever it's here, it should not now be a mystery for you. And here it tells you about like the underscores. It's always there. That I think it's very important. And here it tells you like how to create the README, which we also did. It shows you how to like create a license, and it shows you the link. And I think and now we are done, right? So now it's time to share. We test it locally, we build it locally, and now it's time to share our work with the wall, right? And to do that, basically, you need to make sure you have setup tools and that you have wheel. And wheel is the one that's going to be doing the and we also going to need another package which is called twine, right? So but for the generating the distribution archives, it just needs these two. So we have to make sure they are at the last version, which I know because I just created the cond environment like a few minutes before the tutorial and I installed the two of them, right? So how does it work then? So then what Python does, basically it does Python, then setup PI. So it runs the setup PI file and it passes two things, this sdist and this bdist wheel. So what are those things? And I honestly, at the beginning, I was like, no idea. But then I found this most amazing Python tutorial from, no, sorry, no, this one. This one is also very good. So this is a great resource, but the one I wanted to show you was this one, which is what are Python wheels and why should you care? And what this tutorial in a nutshell tells you is that you can, when you install a Python package, you either are installing for a wheel or from a source distribution, right? And you will recognize when you're installing from a source distribution because you are downloading whatever file ending like a tarball file, like this tar GZ. And that's the source distribution, which is the opposite in some ways to a wheel, right? And how do you create the source distribution? Well, you create it by doing Python setup pi sdist. And how do you create the wheel distribution? Well, you create it by doing Python setup pi bdist wheel, right? And that's what I want to show you now. So actually what Python Pypi shows you, Pypi tutorial shows you here is, so to say, in a single command line to create both the source distribution and the bdist wheel distribution. So I'm going to be doing that. Just let me copy paste. And I'm going to first uninstall pip uninstall animal, say. Yes. Okay, I'm just going to make sure that you can read it. I'm going to clear the terminal. I'm going to do Python. Observe now that I'm always at the my level package. That's very important. And I'm going to run these two. And let me just close this because you will realize here that now like two new folders appear. Okay, so it doesn't look too spectacular, but what it happened here is that in the distribution folder, you have now two new things. You have a file called something wheel, and another file which is the tarball file. And I think the cool thing is that we can try opening the tarball file, and you see then what's in this file, right? So let me do that. Let me just open another window. Okay. And I'll just go to my package so that I can show you what's in there. Just one sec. I have so much mess. Good. So we have in the dist, we have the tar. And you see here, we have our code. We have the whole animal say library with the modules and submodules being imported. And we also have, for instance, like the README, right? And the setup PL file. And the wheel in that sense is exactly the same thing with like many differences. So it's like exactly the same concept in that it allows you to install a library, but you will see the following. So the following differences, which is now and there is also a build folder being created, right? And that's why. And if you ask yourself why, this folder was created when you decided to also go for the wheel. So the source distribution, it compresses your code into this tar file, but it doesn't build your project. The build will have to be done on the user end side. When the user like does pip install something, you will see like the building going on. Whereas if you have also a wheel, the project is already built and you will just like be able to directly install it. Then Python projects, for instance, in my case, it was like just pure Python code. So there is no proper like build stage. When would there be a proper build stage? There would be a proper build stage if you had, for instance, C or C++ code in your project, which happens very often in libraries like NumPy if you contribute to it, or PyTorch. Then the build step is really important, right? And because it's so important, it's better if it doesn't happen at the user end. So wheels are the preferred option. Now, coming quickly back to the tutorial I told you I love so much, I think it says a few things that I like, saying that all else being equals, wheels are typically smaller than size, and they make it go faster. And then it also tells you how you should read a wheel. So it tells you first you have like the name of your library, the version of the library. Then you will see also for which Python, you will also see the platform. So it gives you all this information. And I think that's important because then when you now see the name of this file, it doesn't look as so to say as unknown as it looked before, right? And we will talk also about what is this known and any. Like if you scroll a bit down, like tutorial, it tells you known is the ABI tag, meaning ABI is not a factor, and any is the platform, meaning that what I've done, we work in any platform, but only in my case for Python 3, because mine look like this, like PyY3 non any wheel. Yeah, and here it says advantage of wheels, faster, smaller. There is no need for a compiler because you have already built the project before. It automatically generates the Pyc files, and actually you can see it, that there is these Pyc files. If, for instance, you go to the PyCache, you will see those Pyc files, right? And it's this the interpreter kind of like pre-compile some of the code. I know the interpreter pre-compiles, it's kind of like a bit weird, but I explicitly check on Stack Overflow to make sure I was not kind of like inventing anything. But it says the interpreter compiles to bytecode first, and it seems that this makes your project run somewhat faster, right? Okay, sorry. A lot of talking here, but I think at some point you would be wondering what were those two things. But essentially, we have gathered our Python code and our setup PI file and all what we needed in like a wheel and like a tar file, and that's what we are going to be uploading to PyPy for other users to download. And I want to show you that you could actually already install these things. So if I do pip install, and now I go to the dist folder, and now I take this animal say tar file, that should also work. And you're going to see first, well, it's collecting the packages, and then it's building it, and then it's installed, and it has successfully installed. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pip and install animal say. I'm going to kind of like repeat the same thing, but instead of using this file, I'm going to be using the wheel now. So now I'm using the wheel, and it will do exactly the same thing, except that if you realize there has been no build stage because it's already built, right? Sorry. Pip uninstall. Yeah. Okay. So where are we in the tutorial? So we have done this step, and it tells you that in the dist folder you will see those things which we see, right? And here is the first point that you can actually run into problems if your setup PI file was not really following the contract. Then what you have to do next, and we are getting to the end, is you have to upload your files to TestPipe. And TestPipe is exactly this one, right? So it looks just like Pypi, except is you can see it from the URL is TestPipe. But if it works in TestPipe, it would also work in Pypi, right? So here, the only you will see in the release history here is where I was trying out things, right? And when it finally worked, I then move it to Pypi. To be honest, you would be following another naming convention. So your pre-release versions would all be called like 001, 002. Yeah. So yeah. And if you were to download the files, see that you have again here the wheel and the tar file, right? Yes. So to upload it to PyPy or to TestPipe, sorry, you use something called Twine. So first we use setup tools and we use wheel, and now we are using another library which is Twine. And what you say is you say just like Python twine upload, and then you put hashtag repository TestPipe and whatever is in the this folder. Then why do you do this hashtag TestPipe? Basically, because otherwise it will upload it to Pypi. So by indicating TestPipe, it knows that it's the other one. And what you need to do here is the prerequisite, is that you need to sign up for an account to TestPipe, which is free, and later you will need to have to sign up for an account at Pypi. And then it asks for your username, it asks for your password, and once you have like entered those two things, your package will upload, right? And then once it has uploaded, you can try downloading it, right? So you see, like I have now this URL from TestPipe, that's why it has this -y, and I'm gonna take this one now, and I'm gonna install it again in my system. So, and look, it took the Wii, which is the preferred option. There was no build stage, and it successfully installed it, right? So, and then I would, so to say, try again that it works. And when I'm like super happy with it, what I will do is move to the final stage, which is, well, I would try that it works, right? So installing your newly uploaded package. And then I would repeat the command, but I would leave this out. And by leaving this out, then you are uploading to the main Pypi, and then you can repeat that the installation works. And yeah, I think that's basically it in a nutshell, right? So I'm gonna be coming now back to the main screen so I can see you. So I thought I hoped you find that useful. I think next steps, things you could do is first try forking my project, adding some extra animals. So get familiar with the structure, which I think by the end of now you already are. Try adding some extra animals and do a pull request. And I think that's kind of something which is 101 of contributing to open source projects, and that I'm planning to do another short video and showing you how, if you've never forked and done like a pull request. Then something that you could also do a bit more advanced is, instead of adding animals, maybe you want to add some tests, because I have no test folder, right? So I think that's something important that is missing. And finally, another thing you could try is, now that you have an idea of how all these parts fit together, try creating your own project from scratch, right? Which I think it's the next step. So yeah, I mean, thanks for joining. That was actually all I wanted to show you. As things coming up, I plan to do another session showing how to fork and do a pull request, and another session on PyTest when I learn a bit more about it myself. So yeah, I think that's all I had to say. Let me know in the chat if there are any questions. Otherwise, we are done.